Yeah, good evening, welcome, and namaste. Welcome to my live show, and today we'll be talking about leading the startup, lessons on leadership for the first time founders. Well, my name is Sandeep Gupta. I'm a culture and consciousness expert. I service businesses and leaders looking for the better way, and the better way means honoring human dimension and potential in business and life for sustainable credibility, growth, and profits. So, now with this, let us just start and straightway jump in today's topic startups. Everywhere we are hearing this word startup, startup, startup. You go to colleges, academia, there are fairs, there are big competitions where people are coming up with ideas and thoughts with dreams of converting them into big businesses, earning millions of dollars. Now, the point is this something new or it is just a fad? Well, businesses have been a part of society and they'll always continue to be a part of society. The fad, I'll say startup is a fad. It is something which is being promoted extensively by the governments because they require people to be job enablers. New businesses are required as the population grows. New employment opportunities are required. So, startups are fundamentally the same like any other business. They have 5 stages, again, like any other business: the concept, the proof of concept, commercialization, scale up, and maturity. And if we really look at the definition of startup, there's no formal definition of startups. The government of India has got particular schemes. And what does the government of India say? It says that any organization which is a registered organization, a company, a private limited company, or a LLP of less than 10 years in existence, less than 100 crores in turnover, and which is involved in the development or is working towards the development or improvement of a product, process, or service, and or have scalable business models with high potential for creation of wealth and employment qualifies to be a startup. If we take the general consensus or the general understanding of what a startup is a young company founded to develop a unique product or service, bring it to the market, and make it irresistible and irreplaceable for the customers. It is usually funded by the entrepreneurs who put it up in the initial phase. Do you know this thing that India is the third largest startup ecosystem in the world? And do you know this thing that 90% of the businesses fail within the first 5 years? And globally, if we look at the failure rate, it is said 95% of the businesses fail in the first 10 years. Now, the question is, what are the reasons for these failures? If you look at the KPMG study, a lot of people say, the study says lack of marketing needs, 42%, lack of funding, 29%, lack of right team, 23%, competition, 19%, and the business model or marketing, etc., the balance, 14%. Now, before we come to the reasons, let us look at the other factor of this failure. Now, while failure definitely, makes us lose trillions and trillions of dollars, of the money invested over there. But if we calculate the psychological damage which this failure does, it is phenomenal. Numbers of lives are ruined. There's a sense of shame, a sense of guilt, desperation, humiliation, anger, emotional pain, remorse, you name it. And there are very few people who can accept it and take it. They spend their lives in trying to make it work, but nothing works. And do you know the reasons? The reason is very simple. They do not understand the dynamics of the business. They believe that business is primarily designing something, converting it into a prototype, offering it to the market, selling and buying, setting up a factory, hiring people. But no, business in itself is a huge ecosystem which they need to create. Now, this ecosystem has got three components. It starts with I, the people who are putting the business up. It could be an individual, it could be a few friends, or a few strangers who get together for a common purpose. Now, these I are the soul of the business, because without them, this business or the startup would not come into existence. Now, these I, they bring together a large number of people as employees, as consultants, as advisors, and they network with them and form good relationships and close relationships. And then all of them put, and so this is the V part, the second part. And then all of them put together, they create the infrastructure, they create the product, they create the processes, they create the systems, they create the marketing collaterals. So the all non-living stuff which is created, that is the it part. And the it is the body. Now the relationship between the I, we, and it in business can be compared to the relationship between the soul, the mind, and the body in we humans. Now, if you remove the soul from the human structure, you are dead. Similarly, if you remove the I from the business ecosystem, that is the founders, the promoters, the people who are managing it are sitting at the top, the business just goes dead. Now, let's bring the soul back, and if you just remove the mind, what happens? You're alive, you're breathing, but no action is happening. Similarly, from the business ecosystem, if we remove the we, the people, the business would be there, but there'll be no action. And in the human system, if we remove the body, you don't exist. Similarly, if you remove the infrastructure, you remove the systems, you remove the processes, in other words, you remove the it part, the business does not exist. So this is one part which people do not really understand, especially the first-time founders. The second part, which they miss out, is that what they are doing today, they are creating a business for tomorrow. So they got to visualize what the tomorrow would be. And if we look at the progress, how we have been moving from the industrial age to where we are today, that is the people age or the knowledge economy, things have changed dramatically. Like in the era, the 20th century, where machines were the prime movers, by and large, people working in businesses at the lower level or the mid-level or in the factories did not need to think much because there were SOPs. They were supposed to do the job correctly. But now, with people economy coming into play, the SOPs are in the mind of people. Ideas carry value. Knowledge carries value. And in such a situation, what worked earlier does not work. A different dynamics is required in today's environment, and the dynamics is of spiritual intelligence and emotional intelligence. While rational intelligence, which produces results, performance, profits, the top line is very important. But at the same time, equally important has become spiritual intelligence and emotional intelligence. Now, why do I say so? The way businesses are going and the way things are changing in times to come, which are the businesses which would survive, remain relevant, and grow? Or what are the attributes that would be required? Or what would these businesses represent? These businesses would represent three things: a high level of self-awareness on the part of the people. Number two, excellent level of man management skills. And three, ethics and values. And obviously, that goes without saying, the results, the performance, etc. That's taken for granted. Now, spiritual intelligence and rational intelligence, when they combine, they bring ethics and values. And these ethics and values help the people at the top, that's the I segment, to control, to create a culture, to bind everything together. Because the biggest cement in human relationships is ethics and values. You tend to gravitate towards the people with whom your values coincide, or you share values with them. Then rational intelligence and emotional intelligence leads to performance and results, the bottom lines and the top lines. And the emotional intelligence and spiritual intelligence, they lead to human interaction that is good quality man management. Now, if we look at Google and do a Google search on why do businesses fail, we get a laundry list of number of reasons, a large number of reasons. And if you put them together, there'll be primarily 7, 10 reasons. And they would read something like this: lack of innovation, lack of funding, lack of focus, product was not market fit, leadership gaps, lack of agility, ignoring customers, talent and competencies. So what do we see in this list? By and large, everything is pointing towards it. That is the processes, the products, the systems, the procedures. The only dimension which is focusing on we is the team dynamics. You don't have a good team, but there's hardly anything which focuses on the I part. Now, to survive, to remain relevant, and to grow and create an organization for the future, like in a human well-being scenario, the mind, body, and soul need to integrate and work in sync. Similarly, in business, the I, the we, and the it need to synchronize and work in harmony, need to be integrated in the right proportions. Now the question is, how does one prepare for I? Now I is primarily, it starts with self-awareness. Why do you behave the way you behave? Why do you think the way you think? And this comes from self-awareness. All of us live in two worlds simultaneously, the physical world and the inner world. The inner world is of our thoughts, values, aspirations, dreams. The physical world is the world in which we live, breathe, take action. Now, the inner world creates our outer world, because it's said in ancient wisdom everywhere that what you perceive, the way you think, creates your reality in the physical world. And how are these two worlds connected? These two worlds are connected by our attention connects them. It is our attention which helps us to bring things out of our subconscious into our conscious, turn them into a decision, and we implement it. But unfortunately, our attention hates to stay in the present. It loves to stay in the past, or it loves to stay in the future. Secondly, as per Harvard Business Review research, it says 47% of the time, or say 47% of our waking hours, our attention is not with us, it's wandering. So it's a simple equation. Let's see the average life cycle of a human being is 75 years. 1/3, that's 8 hours a day, we spend in sleeping and taking care of our biological needs, going to the washroom, etc., having a bath. We are left with, so 25 years out of 75 years go in sleeping. We are left with 50 years. Now, out of 50 years, if 50% of the time our attention is not in our body, this means for 25 years, we are not productive. That's the time we are wasting. And the good news is that, like you can develop your muscles, similarly, you can develop your attention. It's basically a mental exercise, and it's a mental muscle, a mental exercise, and there are number of studies, scientific studies, which say that your attention can be developed. So the first and the foremost thing, to be fully aware of what's happening around you, to make your senses, the five senses, give you complete knowledge, to be very much there in the now and be cognizant of everything, which is going to help you to take a good decision, a considered decision, which is going to help you to become efficient and effective. We need to train our attention. And to train our attention, it's very simple. There's an exercise called focus on your breath exercise. In this exercise, you bring your attention or your focus to your nostrils, and for 5 minutes, just focus on the sensation you are feeling on the in-breath and the sensation you are feeling on the out-breath. Focus in such a way as if nothing else is there in the world at that point of time. Within a few seconds, your attention would drift. It'll go here, it'll go there. The moment you realize, just bring back your attention. Initially, it might feel tough, but slowly and gradually, you will start developing control over your attention. And believe me, if you do this exercise for 5 minutes every day, for a period of 15 to 20 days, you will start seeing the difference. Now, once you have developed your attention, the second thing is observation. Now, when I say observation, I don't mean only the external observation. I also mean observing what's happening inside you. Now, whenever there's a thought or a stimulus, internal changes happen within us. And these changes happen at a physiological level. Usually we ignore them. But science says these physiological sensations or changes which happen inside us are a precursor to our external disposition or the external reaction. So, if we learn to identify that this is what is happening inside me, for example, you must have seen that whenever you get angry, now before getting angry and you exploding externally, your muscles tighten, your face tightens, your heartbeat might go up. Similarly, when fear grips you, there's some churning inside you, there's muscular tension. And if you really observe, all these things happen before the external disposition. And once we learn to observe what's happening inside us, it gives us the ability to respond rather than react. So first, having managed our attention, learned how to manage our attention. Second, learning to observe internally and externally. Third is pause. Now, the moment there's an internal observation that, okay, now this thing might lead to something negative, for example, anger, or it could lead to irritation, it could lead to fear. Take a step back mentally. Now, this mental step back allows the stimulus to reach our prefrontal cortex, that is a thinking brain. Otherwise, what happens? Our emotional brain, which only knows, whose aim is only to keep us safe, which only knows three things: fight, flight, or freeze, takes a decision and makes us react. Now, once we learn how to respond instead of react, the last thing which is required is to accept reality as it is. We do accept reality, but then we accept it with riders. We accept it with excuses. We accept it with rational arguments. Now, what happens in this thing? The focus shifts from reality. It shifts to the arguments or the reasons or the doubts, and our brain, which does not like pain, because accepting reality a number of times leads to pain also, shuts us off, and it dilutes the impact of the reality in us. So accept reality as it is. Once we do these four things, our self-awareness starts getting deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And it prepares us to the next phase. In the next phase, we develop flexibility. Now just imagine, if you're open to the new information coming in, open to new ideas, open to new thoughts, will it not impact your life positively? Then after flexibility, it is adaptability. Don't you get angry when people refuse to adapt to changes? Yes, you do. After adaptability comes coherence, consistency. Now, coherence is very important. It brings your purpose, thoughts, and actions into alignment. It makes you consistent. Now, these three things, again, land up in increasing your self-confidence. And when the self-confidence goes up, you get energized. And with a lot of energy, you become stable. Now, this is the second level of preparing. And the third level is, which is a byproduct of the second level, that is, you start taking ownership, you start witnessing things as they are, and you start narrating things as they should be narrated. And when you narrate things and accept things as they should be narrated, what happens? Our brain opens up. The right hemisphere, which is primarily, which deals with emotions, values, imagination, starts talking to the left hemisphere, which deals with data and logic. Now imagine, all businesses, life requires Constant innovation requires constant creativity. Only the left hemisphere, only logic and data cannot create or cannot bring that innovation. For innovation or creativity, you got to dream. So it becomes very essential for the right brain and the left brain to talk to each other. And the process which I've given for preparing I to start a business helps us in knowing ourselves better, helps us in managing our emotions better, helps us in connecting better with people, helps us in using a full brain, and also helps us from moving from reaction to response. The second thing is now you have prepared yourself to enter business, you have entered business, and you are creating that we ecosystem where you're connecting with people. You're bringing them to your fold. You're creating a network. The first step is you got to accept, acknowledge, and appreciate. When you go to a meeting, or you go to any party, or you get into a group, if you're not accepted for what you are, if you're not acknowledged, and if you are not appreciated, don't you get angry? And what happens when the other person accepts you, acknowledges you, and appreciates you? A certain kind of bonding arises, a certain type of heart-to-heart connection comes into play. The next thing is connect with the heart. Because if what we usually do, we connect with our mind with an end objective in mind or end goal in mind, then it's not a connection, it's a transaction. It's quite likely that you might feel that this person will not be in a position to help me at this point of time, therefore there is no utility, but you do not know that what the person can do for you in the future. Therefore, it becomes very essential that you connect with the heart, develop a good relationship, so that the doors for the future are also open. And last is non-violent communication. Now, what does non-violent communication mean? It means constructive feedback, constructive way of talking, and it has got 4 elements. And what are the 4 elements? Number 1, observe. Number 2, feel. Feel the emotions of the person talking to you. Number 3 is think. And number 4, express what you want. Don't leave it open-ended, because communication is all about exchange of information and exchange of energy. And in this process of observing, feeling, thinking, and expressing, you are taking care of exchange of information plus exchange of energy. So these are the 3 factors which help to create a strong, structured, and a robust we. Last is the it part. Yes, the infrastructure has to be well considered, well thought. You got to do your research good. On the financial front, you got to be judicious. You got to have processes, systems in place which are appropriate to your size, which do not crack down immediately. And all the 3, the I, we, and it, need to be synchronized so that the 3 function like a well-oiled machine. So now in this background, let us see what 6, 7 points which are critical and the first-time founders need to keep in mind. You know, what I've seen in my practice, a lot of people, they jump into business, they create a startup. They're very clear of their purpose. They're very clear. They want to do it. But since they have not investigated, they have not looked into it, they are not clear in their thoughts. And since they are not clear in their thoughts, there's no consistency in their actions. So if you want the business to be successful, it is imperative that the purpose, thoughts, and actions need to be synchronized, they need to be aligned, and they need to remain supporting each other. They have to work on the principle of collaboration, not merely cooperation. Number two, you got to be focused. Now, developing a startup or developing a business takes time. And the way things are changing, the way products are changing, technology is changing, there's so much volatileness in the market, there's so much complexity in the market, there's so much ambiguity in the market, and there's so much uncertainty in the market. New things keep coming up. There's never surety, you see. Because in the morning, if you see a research paper and you say, oh, hooray, I've got it, you should not be surprised that by the evening, a new research paper contradicting the earlier one comes in front of you. So you got to be focused. You don't need to get swayed away, because businesses which have succeeded and succeed are the ones where people focus on their core business, their thoughts, they focus on their purpose, and they do not allow distractions to sway them. But at the same time, they're open to changing their course or changing their strategies or adapting to the new environment. Next is, don't try to do everything yourself. What I've seen, there are a large number of entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, who get into the space of startups. Somewhere in the subconscious, they're so insecure that they want to control everything. They want to do everything themselves. They got to realize that as entrepreneurs, their job is to expand, their job is to create that ecosystem. And what could be done by others, they should allow others to do it. Next is, hire people better than you. You see, now that insecurity which I just talked about, makes people or makes these entrepreneurs hire people who are substandard, who are not better than them, because somewhere they feel threatened by them. No, you don't need to feel threatened by them. They got a particular role to play. You have your roles, have your structure and procedures in place, have your authorities in place, and hire people who are better than you. And when you hire people who are better than you and you treat them well with ethics and values, with compassion, with empathy, they give you much more than you pay them. And loyalty is not lost, they are loyal to you. Another big mistake which a lot of young entrepreneurs do, to build their confidence, they without realizing, surround themselves with people who are merely yes man. Get rid of them. Just get rid of them. And if you have anyone who's very pessimistic and says that he or she is being realistic, but is always talking negative, which is primarily pessimism, right? Or is always scaring you, get rid of that person. Get rid of that person. Let me ask you one thing. This is 2022. In 2020, did you know or did you visualize that you would do certain things which you are doing today? Obviously not. Similarly, let's go back to 2015. In 2015, did you ever imagine that you would do the things which you did between 2015 and 2020? Obviously not. So, like in the past, you don't know or you did not know what you would be doing. Similarly, don't be scared, move ahead, take a rational decision. Next, collaborate. Do not merely cooperate. Cooperation is transactional. It comes from I. What will I get? What will I get? For example, a lawyer and a client, a doctor and a patient. What we need in business are collaborations, which comes from we. What will we as a team get? While cooperation, 1 plus 1 becomes 1 or remains 1 because it's coming from I. In collaboration, 1 plus 1 becomes 11 because it is coming from we. The next point is, don't think small, think big. Because unless you think big, it will be difficult to really move forward. I have got clients who are standing at 200 crores today, and they are already planning for 1,000 crores. I have one client which is standing at 10,000 crores, is planning for 60,000 crores. They're thinking big. And when you think big, apply the reverse engineering process. Okay, if I reach 1,000 crores, what would my company look like? What would I need? Let's come back 2 years, say, or let's put it, let me just rephrase the entire thing. Okay, I am going to reach 1,000 crores in 2026. Then I say, okay, what would my company look like? What are the attributes needed? What would be the size, the kind of people, the departments? I mentally create a big scenario. Then I say, okay, what would the company look like in 2024? Obviously, it will be smaller. Then from the larger picture, I deduce the smaller picture. Then I come down to 23 and then to 22 where I'm standing. So in a way, I create a path forward. And while working on the path forward, I put in 10x effort. Now, why do I put in 10x effort? Life is uncertain. There's a lot of uncertainty in life. If you have put in 10x effort, even if 50% does not work, still you will be 5x than today. And lastly, and most importantly, do not shirk away from hiring a coach and a mentor. Because a coach and a mentor help you to develop a clear thought process, help you to develop a clear, flexible, and a rational strategy. They help you to overcome your internal challenges so that you're more effective and more emotional. You're more effective and more efficient. Yes, and you're also more emotional because the more emotional you become, the better you will connect. But becoming more emotional does not mean that you start shedding tears at every point. No, it doesn't happen that way. The only thing is you connect better. You'll be operating out of humility, you'll be operating out of compassion, and you'll be operating out of empathy. So with this, I've given you a stadium view of what needs to be done. How do you prepare yourself to be amongst the 5% or the 10% who survive and grow and not be a part of the 90% who fail? So with this, thank you very much. Now, you know where you can reach me. You can reach me on my LinkedIn page. My coordinates are given there. You could send me a message and we could always talk. So thank you very much for joining me and listening to me. Thank you.